Hi, welcome to the Quipster Film Review Podcast. My name is Vince Leo. I'm the film critic for the website Quipster.net. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoy the review. If you do, I do encourage you to go to my website. You can read over 3,800 of my written reviews anytime. Quipster.net is where to go. QWIPSTER.net. Today I'm going to be reviewing a film that's out in a limited selection of theaters right now. It's called Southside with You. It's a romance drama. It's a PG-13 rated film because of brief, strong language, smoking, a violent image, and a drug reference. It runs an hour and 24 minutes, and the two main stars are Tika, Sumpter, and Parker Sawyers. The director and the screenwriter is Richard Taney. Southside with You is a bit of a bold undertaking in terms of theatrically released films. It gives an intimate romantic portrayal of the current president of the United States and his wife, the First Lady, while they're still in a power position to, I guess, condemn it in public if they wanted to as complete bunk. It also gives a very intimate day in the life of public figures in a way that's very personal and romantic. It relies on the actors to imbue their real-life characters with enough believability to make us forget that we're watching stand-ins and become invested in the drama that we see before us as actually something that is happening to the real Barack Obama and Michelle Robinson. The story is inspired by anecdotes found in the memoirs in which they depict their actual first date. This begins back in August of 1989. It's in the South Side of Chicago, hence the title. This is a day in which a young and smart and career-minded corporate lawyer named Michelle Robinson accepts meeting with Harvard-bound summer office mate Barack Obama on the pretense that they attend a housing project community meeting as colleagues. It should be noted that in real life, this community meeting actually happened at some point during their courtship, but after the first date. Michelle Robinson does make it clear to Barack Obama, who kind of fudged a bit on when the actual start time of this meeting is, so that they had to continue to walk and talk and get to know each other a little bit better before the meeting, that whatever they're doing socially is just as colleagues, and this is definitely not a date. Obama, we see at the beginning of the film, during the opening credits, he's driving his rusted out car in order to greet her, to pick her up and take her to this event. He feels very differently about how this day is going to go, and he is really making it his task to convince Michelle otherwise before the day is through. They eat, they walk, they check out other spots in the area, they discuss art, the pleasure of the TV show Good Times, the art of Ernie Barnes, the poetry of Gwendolyn Brooks. They discuss their family and personal history. They become better acquainted, but they still differ on just what it is that they're doing together that day. Now, obviously, I guess unless you're an amnesiac on the level of Leonard from the movie Memento, you know where things will eventually go. Now, those who see Southside with You will instantly see that writer and here debut director Richard Taney is pretty much lifting wholesale the formula of Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise in the way that he approaches capturing the romance between Barack Obama and Michelle Robinson. If you've seen the 1995 film Before Sunrise, it's a redundancy that makes the early going of Taney's film seem pretty derivative and a bit stale out of the gate because we've had two other before sunset, before midnight movies. So, why do we have to see another version of this film? We watch the two main characters walk and talk around the city. They stop to observe an art exhibition, an outdoor dance performance in the neighborhood park. We see them grow either closer or further apart as they share their mutual experiences and discuss their personal feelings. We've been here before a few times already, so what makes this different other than the fact that we're watching future President and First Lady of the United States? But by the end of the film, it kind of works. The two leads do perform pretty magnificently. They capture the nature of the people that they're portraying without resorting to obvious caricature or stereotype. It's pretty remarkable how we as the audience come to accept these versions, these younger versions of their real life counterparts merely because they exhibit a lot of the same mannerisms and the cadence of their line deliveries. They not only look like their counterparts, but they really capture the essence of them in a pretty remarkable way. Now, regardless of the politics that you might ascribe to the film, This is a pretty interesting movie just to be able to see, at least speculatively, about these two major figures in politics in their relative infancy. They're still absorbing the world around them. They're bouncing off ideas on each other. All of these things that would eventually form the basis of their beliefs later in life as they solidify. Along those lines, it's a pretty humanizing film because we see Obama dealing with some personal matters, the negativity that he feels toward his father. He has his chain smoking habit at that time too. He has a lot of struggles with finding not only a relationship, but also lasting employment. But we can also see that Obama charm, that swagger that's there, as well as his optimism in performing social public service. These things that would eventually be helpful in wooing a nation to elect its first African American president. But, on this day, he is using those skills to win over the romantic feelings of a woman who so clearly has defined, at least in her own mind, the boundaries of where she's willing to go with him. But it's a challenge, just like many other things in Obama's life, that he feels he can overcome. Southside with You has a nice sense of the period. Music plays from the likes of Janet Jackson as Obama's driving to his so-called first date. Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing is on the agenda. That film was definitely a topic of conversation in the summer of 1989 for those interested in the social issues of the day, especially. Certainly you could see how Barack Obama and Michelle Robinson would be very interested in seeing that movie. The story of Southside with You is still, regardless of who the people are later in life, it's still interesting above and beyond just showcasing a young version of our current White House residents finding love in one another, because it's also a look back to this different time, this different place as a people and as a society, and also in how these people fall in love. It's a formula that worked probably better in the Before series because we could really concentrate more on the act of falling in love and maintaining love and trying to make relationships work, whereas in this film, they have a lot less wiggle room to show the participants in a particularly negative light without the anecdotal material to back it up. So along those lines, it stays pretty positive. Now, just like first dates themselves, Southside with You does start off a bit stiff. It's a bit awkward. We're unsure just what we're getting into when we go into this movie. Eventually, though, it begins to coalesce into something more because we can see what's before us in an entirely new light with each passing observation or moment of welcome intellectualism. We see more nuance, more to the attractive people in front of us than what we saw before, just like we would on a date in which things started to click eventually. And I think that that's where the film also wins us over as the viewers. Obviously, Obama has become a very polarizing figure. Staunch Republicans, staunch conservatives cannot stand him for a variety of reasons that are political or perhaps personal, maybe even prejudicial in some respects, sad to say. But it's not really going to turn around those viewers who are absolutely against Barack and Michelle Obama because of their own reasons. They're going to no doubt ignore the film outright because they're going to feel that it's some sort of hero-worshipping fan fiction for the political left to eat up. And that's kind of too bad because I don't think that this is an overtly political film, but I guess just people thinking that somehow humanizing this person that they've determined to hate is somehow a political film in and of itself. However, I think that as an exercise in finding this human aspect to our leaders through a narrative that evokes an examination not only of them as people, but also in the art and the society and the ability for people to become those leaders, even in places and stations in life where it would seem impossible. Certainly 1989 in the South Side of Chicago, 2 residents there, African American, that would have been thought of as unheard of in those times, but now, sky's the limit, I guess, for anybody who wants to become president and has the intellect, the charisma, and the wherewithal to do it. If Barack Obama can do it, certainly that opens a lot of doors for a lot of people. And that's one of the more interesting things to see among these two currently remarkable people at that time, where they probably thought that they were just on a completely different career trajectory at the time to be lawyers and, make a living for themselves and for their families. So, it's not the kind of movie that I would watch repeatedly. It's not really artistic. It's just an interesting idea for a movie that is put into this formula that is done by Richard Linklater and actually becomes its own thing. It's A little bit of a novelty, I will admit, but I think it works. So it's an entertaining and very illuminating romance. It ends up being much more than just watching two people find receptive feelings toward one another. There's a lot of commentary here going on multiple levels, and that's why I'm going to recommend Southside with You. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 4. It was really close to getting a 3.5, but I feel like on a repeat viewing, I probably won't be as interested now that I know where everything is going. And as I usually mention on borderline calls, my rule of thumb is on a first time watch, I'm going to give it the lower of the 2 grades. I do recommend it for those people who are interested in this subject matter. If this doesn't seem like your kind of movie, you know, you're not into romances, or you just cannot stand Obama for any reason, you know, this is not going to be the movie for you, and there's nothing I can say or do that's going to probably win you over in that respect. Even though the film, in essence, is really about Obama's ability to win people over who are reticent about accepting him, whether as a political leader or even as a romantic partner. So, and unlike the Before series, we already know where these characters are going to be every 9 years that follow, so I don't think that we're going to have a whole series of these films anytime soon, regardless of whether this becomes a hit in the box office or not. But for now, 3 stars out of 4 goes to Southside with You. Definitely recommended for those people who like romances and are more favorably inclined toward the Obamas. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, please click the subscribe button and you'll continue to get all of my reviews downloaded throughout the course of the year. If you happen to be on iTunes, leave a review if you want to support the show, and you can go to patreon.com/Quipster and leave a pledge if you really want to support the show. My next review is going to be Hell or High Water, and that was recommended by a listener, so I'm going to be doing that coming up within the next day or so after doing this recording. So definitely click the subscribe button if you want to hear that one as well.